Ladies and gentlemen, joining us on the Shining Wizards hotline, we are joined by Mr. Nigel McGuinness. Nigel, how are you tonight?
I'm good. Bit of a headache, actually. I think I'm coming down with something.
It seems to be going around.
I'm sick. Tony's sick. Eddie's sick. Shane Douglas was sick. So we're we're a disaster, all of us. We got through Christmas, and now everybody's sick. So how are you tonight, outside the headache?
Other than that, I'm doing all right. I'm doing okay, quite excited. I'm heading up towards Yosemite tomorrow, actually. One of the guys that donated to the Kickstarter campaign gets to watch the documentary with me live and in person in his house. So I'm heading up there tomorrow afternoon to watch it. So it's quite exciting.
That is very exciting. For those of you who aren't aware, Nigel just put out an amazing documentary, The Last of the McGuinness. You don't have to be a wrestling fan to enjoy this. I got it on Christmas Eve, and I actually watched it yesterday. It was the first wrestling DVD I put in that I got for Christmas. And it's an emotional roller coaster, and it's just so well done. I know you took months of your own time. I know you did all the editing and all the filming. How taxing was that on you? Just because it was just literally you with a camera doing your farewell tour. I mean,
I don't know if taxing is the word. I mean, it took a lot of work, a lot of hours. Sat in front of the computer editing it. I really had to learn every step of the way. Just from the very beginning, from what camera to get, what computer, what editing software, how to cut it together, where to get music, how to get rights to use footage, and photos and everything else, and get everybody to sign releases, and then to actually get the thing produced, where to get it made, how to design the case, and then obviously how to let people see it. The people who supported the project from day one, how to let them, sort of have a sneak peek before anybody else. Every step of the way, it was a learning process. Bit of a headache, but it was worth it in the end.
Yeah, I mean, just watching the documentary, you get to see from day one of your decision to go on this last tour to when you start your Kickstarter documentary. I mean, you're physically blown away after 3 days of how much money you raised. And I don't want to give away the whole documentary, but I mean, you battled yourself just with you beat yourself up because you didn't make it to the WWE. And it's such a powerful and raw documentary. I mean, towards the end of the film, you kind of just you explode, you vent, and it is so powerful. I mean, going back and watching that when you're editing that, what's going through your mind while you're watching this?
I don't know. I think when you watch something enough times, to a certain extent, you kind of lose some of the raw emotion of it, because, like I said, you've seen it so many times. But I think I always knew, obviously, that would be a pivotal moment in the movie, and it had to be in there. I just had to find a way to put it at the right place, etc., etc. I mean, it still moves me. It's still very passionate and still difficult to watch. I think a lot of people said that when they watched it, they kind of felt like it was difficult for them to watch, because they almost feel as though they shouldn't be watching it, as though they were watching something. It was a moment that most people don't really see.
Yeah, it was very personal. I mean, I'm not ashamed to say of it. Up till that moment, there were moments when I, watching it, had tears in my eyes, not because I'm a wrestling big fan, but I'm watching this guy. He puts his heart and soul into his career, and he feels like he hasn't accomplished anything, and you just kind of put it all out on the table there.
Right. I mean, I don't think I was really aware until I actually started editing together what was there. I remember having finished the tour, and having 70 hours of footage and feeling like, oh man, there's really not that much there. I was kind of looking for a moment, those sort of moments where something happens and go, oh, okay, that'll be it, that'll make this. And there wasn't a whole lot of them. There was the time on the plane where Bison Smith had died. I was very upset, and I knew that was a sort of a very sort of pivotal moment for me. But the majority of the tour was a lot of me being very, introspective and thinking about my career and kind of negative and hard on myself. And in and of itself, it didn't really, play well. So I knew I had to find a way of putting that in the right framework, telling a story. That was part of what took me so long to get to this stage.
I think it was worth the wait. And I ordered the DVD with all the extras, and I don't want to sound mean or anything, but the extras were more enjoyable than the film. I like all that. No, I just like all that extra shit. Like, he's laying in bed with Eddie Edwards talking about how he knows a bloke who had anal with some girl unprotected. It's just, fun. It's just like goofy stuff like that. Like, I enjoy all the extras. One of the big things that kept coming up during your documentary was your view on people cutting themselves, and at one point you even went as far as telling a promoter that, if there's an incident in the ring, the Necro Butcher was wrestling somebody, and then the bellkeeper cut himself to prove that he was the Necro Butcher's ultimate fan or something goofy like that. You went as far as telling the promoter you wouldn't get in the ring. And was that something that came along when you found out that you contacted or contracted?
Yes, that's the
contracted.
word.
Okay, sorry, contracted hepatitis B. Were you more aware of the blood disease before you had it? Was that a concern for you, or after you found out what had happened with yourself?
It was obviously more of a concern after it happened. I was always concerned. I mean, ever since I remember I used to go and wrestle free in Rotten for IWA Mid-South, and a lot of times there were so many hardcore matches on his shows that the ring would just be full of bodily fluids, like blood, sweat, and shards of glass, and all this horrible stuff. And I remember thinking then, like, God, I'm scared to death of getting in that ring. You didn't even want to do a forward roll because you were scared of something cutting you. And then, even at other points in my career, I only ever got color, only intentionally bled one time in my entire career. And I didn't really want to do it then. I don't think my concern so much at that point was the issue of diseases and stuff like that. I think at that point, I just didn't really believe in it from an artistic standpoint. I thought it was kind of a cheap way of trying to get a reaction. I didn't know what I was doing. I think everybody else did it, and there was no real need for it. So certainly after what happened to me, it became more of an issue from a health standpoint. There's always concerns. Obviously, when it hits that close to home, then it certainly changes your viewpoint on that. And I'd actually talked to Don. Don was the promoter of APWA beforehand, and a lovely fella, and he was a big fan of my work, and said, if this is going to be a retirement tour, I'd really like to have you on my show. And he was a relatively new promoter; he hadn't been running a whole lot. So he paid me well to come in, and I was really honoured that he felt it was that big a deal that he wanted to use me. And I remember looking on either his website or somewhere online, and I usually have a little scan when I'm going to go and work a new place just to see what sort of a place it is. And I remember seeing nothing but blood and guts and somebody dripping blood all over the place. And I'm like, oh my God, this is, I thought, what have I signed up for? This is like a hardcore place. But when I talked to Don, he was like, no, that was just like someone that used to work here, and that was how it used to be. But I'm getting away from that now. I don't want to do it. And I didn't, explain why I had an aversion to being around that sort of thing. But I just said to him, and this was, before I even started going on the tour, I said, I cannot be around any of that sort of stuff. I won't do it. It's just not worth it to me. And then obviously he agreed, and and to this day, he still doesn't want to have any of that stuff around. He believes the same thing I believe. But then, as happens by accident sometimes, it happened by accident in a Necros match. And then the ring announcer cut himself as well, without being told to, I think, at least. So it happens by accident sometimes, and I think that's why I'm so sort of gung-ho about trying to get these changes made in wrestling, because, even if you do stop intentional blood loss, sometimes it will happen by accident, So there are just changes that I think anybody, with any kind of conscience, intelligence should really implement in today's world, knowing what we do know about, infectious diseases. Like, I don't believe people should intentionally bleed anymore. I think it's outdated, first of all. And I think the risks far outweigh the rewards. And I hope eventually in time that wrestling fans will look at it in the same way, much in the same way that 10 years ago, when you saw somebody hit somebody else in the head with an unprotected chair shot, the crowd popped for it. Now, if you see it, the majority of wrestling fans are turned off by it. And they don't want to see that anymore because they understand the dangers inherent in that. But even aside from the intentional blood loss, I think that it's important that we police ourselves on the independent wrestling scene. You get tested regularly. There's a vaccine for hepatitis B, which is available cheaply from your local health department. And it's something that certainly in Ring of Honor we're very aware of. And we are working at the moment to work basically a workable protocol, given the fact that we don't have the money of a big company like TNA or WWE, but we do want to make sure that we can protect the guys, but at the same time still put on some of the best wrestling in the world. So it's just, there's a lot of the things that were going around in my head ever since I tested positive, and then went on the tour as well. These important things to me, and things that I feel would be amiss if I didn't mention it. I could have very easily just, not talked about it and said, wow, dodged a bullet with that one. I'm perfectly okay now. But I don't think that would be fair. I don't think that would be just for me to just stand by knowing that people will, could conceivably, contract something else, because it could be a far worse for somebody else. There's a lot of guys with hepatitis C that don't even know about it now. HIV as well. There's another part in the movie about a wrestler that came up with me that had HIV. It's a very scary situation if you think about it, and I just think that these changes need to be made, and I hope somewhat that the documentary can contribute to that. I'm not going to get on a soapbox and tell everybody they have to do this. Everybody has their own choice. Everybody, if people think that I'm being way over the top and it's not really that important and what happened to me was purely by chance and it shouldn't make any changes whatsoever, well, that's their choice. But by the same token, everybody that I've talked to about it, in the wrestling business at least, seems to agree with me. And that being the case, they also have the choice not to be around somebody who's bleeding. So I'd like to see these changes made, and I just like to have, the discussion out there. I like people to be talking about this and really trying to come to terms with, what really is in my mind an outdated sort of practice.
Yeah, have you ever seen the documentary about the Canadian kid who got bladed and eventually got Hep C from Abdullah the Butcher?
I have not. No, I haven't seen that. I'm obviously aware of it, but I never actually saw it. Have you seen it?
Yeah, you can find it on YouTube if you just type in the young man's name, Devin Nicholson documentary. I mean, it kind of jumps into it, and it covers everything that you're saying. I mean, he was in the ring and he didn't want to blade, and you're in there with Abdullah the Butcher, and he just kind of was helpless in the ring. And now the poor kid, was on his way to WWE, and he got tested with Hep C, and that was pretty much his wrestling career. So right. I mean, you getting out there and putting out this documentary, and that just being one of the small pieces of it is huge, I think, for the wrestling industry. And I think there's guys out there that need to know that the blading and the cutting yourself is something of the extreme wrestling, which is definitely not necessary anymore in this day and age.
Yeah, I hope so, and I hope that people take the fact that these vaccinations are very easy to get. It's one shot a month later and one shot like 6 months after that. So it's 3 very simple shots. So it doesn't hurt. It's like $150 from your local health department, which is next to nothing. If you're going to be around blood, If you're an independent wrestler, then, you know, there's really no excuse for you not getting it. I would have got it. I just had no idea that, you know, when you hear hepatitis, you just think hepatitis. You don't think that there's different forms of it. You don't know that there's a vaccination for one form of it. It's just not there. You just don't think about it. And I just wish someone had told me beforehand, because then none of this would have happened, you know?
Yeah, and as per the document, you still don't know how it happened, do you?
No, I'll never know, you know? I mean, I know how I didn't get it. You know, I didn't have unprotected sex. I never shared needles, or, you know, any of those, what most people think are the most common forms of transmission. You know, I think, as I said to other people before, it's like, I've given up, you know, sort of trying to find out, or, you know, it's not really even the point now. What's done is done. You certainly can't change that. You know, I just want what happened to me to have a positive outcome. You know, I just want it to have a positive impact on the business, and make sure that what happened to me didn't happen to anybody else. You know, it's not about ascribing blame in any way, shape or form. It's just about saying, you know, hopefully we can learn from this.
Now, you go on your retirement tour on your documentary, and was there a particular reason why you didn't have a I don't want to say another last match, but a last match in Ring of Honor?
I think it was at the time, because I just started back with Ring of Honor doing the commentary thing at that point. And so any last match in Ring of Honor would have been without any build whatsoever. And I think they kind of felt, and I think arguably rightly so as well, they didn't want to just throw it out there without any build. But if I was going to have one last match there, they'd like to build it up where it really meant something. And I certainly could understand that. At the same time, though, I wasn't going to wait around, you know, 3 months to have that final match. And I also kind of felt like the last match with Dragon in Ring of Honor, I always felt was going to be my last match in Ring of Honor. Not that, you know, I was like, you can't possibly top that match, because, you know, I think from an emotional standpoint, definitely it was one of our better matches. But we had better matches from a I don't know number of stars reaction or gauge or whatever else. I think the bottom line is, what I'm saying is, I felt as though one last match in Ring of Honor wouldn't have added anything to my career there, and I didn't want to be one of those guys that, you know, said I'm retiring and then didn't retire. You know, I genuinely feel, and it's something that's kind of sacred to me. Ever since I started wrestling, Les Thatcher, who trained me in Cincinnati, always instilled a good sense of pride in being a professional wrestler, even though a lot of the world kind of mocks us, and, you know, it's very stigmatized to a lot of people that, you know, maybe just only ever see a little bit of WWE and think that's all professional wrestling is. I think Les instilled that sense of pride, and that sense of art, and that sense of going out there and having pride in what you're doing, and pride in the way you look, and pride in the matches that you're having. And that being the case, when I have my last match, I'm not going to have another match, because it would take away from that, you know. And there are guys now who are better wrestlers than me, you know, who are younger, who deserve that spot on the card. You know, my card, you know, if I wrestle on any show, it's just going to take a spot away from a young guy who deserves that spot more than I do. I'm very happy with my position in Ring of Honor right now. We're doing a little bit of commentary and a little bit of matchmaking as well. So I'm okay with it, you know. I really am okay with it, and it just didn't fit with the retirement tour.
So you're not going to do the Terry Funk retirement tour, where you wrestle 30 more times?
No. I don't know. You know, I'd love to talk to Terry. I don't know if you've ever had him on the podcast or that. I don't know if anyone's ever really got to the bottom line of why he, you know, didn't ever really retire. Was it the fact that, you know, he kept getting offered really good money to continue to wrestle, or was it for the fact that he just really did still love doing it, or he just didn't know what else to do with himself? Or I don't know, you know. I'd be really interested to find out what it was that has convinced him to continue wrestling all these years.
Well, it's nice to see that. I mean, it's not nice to see that you're going to stick to your, because I mean, you're, you know, throughout the documentary, you're you're wrestling in front of 25 people, and you're constantly asking yourself that question, like, why me? Why is there a line for Scott Steiner? Why is there a line for Carlito? And for me, it's like, yeah, why aren't these people lining up? Because Nigel, I mean, I'm not trying to blow smoke up your ass. In Ring of Honor, you were the guy. You were like, in 1999 in ECW, it was Rob Van Dam. In 2007 and 8 and 9, it was Nigel McGuinness in Ring of Honor. You were the man on top of the mountain that, obviously wasn't where he should have been, and it always should have been WWE. And just the way that whole story unfolds, it's like I said before, it's so emotional, and it's,
it didn't work out, I mean, if anything, it speaks about the professional wrestling industry in those two different time periods,
Yeah.
After ECW went out of business, then a lot of the ECW guys went on to bigger, more lucrative things, Rob made most of his money in WWE and to a certain extent in TNA as well. Whereas, most of the Ring of Honor guys, well, I mean, there are exceptions, obviously Punk and Dragon, and Audio are there now. But it wasn't the same sort of underground railroad, so to speak. You know what I mean? It wasn't like you didn't come in off of your fame from somewhere else. You came in, and it took a while for them to warm up to you, and then they sort of tried to recreate you. They didn't just, they didn't put American Dragon Bryan Danielson on TV because he was already a superstar in Ring of Honor. Whereas with Rob Van Dam, he was already a marketable commodity, and they just ran with that. You know what I mean? It's a very different world that we live in today. It's a shame. It's a shame, but again, it's not the end of the world. And I'm not sure if things happen for a reason or just things happen, and you just you roll with them and you make the best out of what happens to you.
You mentioned that there's guys that are a lot younger and a lot better at this game than you are now. Who impresses you in Ring of Honor? Who are the guys that Nigel McGuinness has his eye on?
There's a lot of guys there with a lot of potential. I've always said Tommaso Ciampa as a guy who's one or two steps away from being a top guy there. Just needs a couple of more bullets in his gun, I think. Adam Cole has been on such a great run now, and he's just going from strength to strength. Every time I see him wrestle, he gets a little bit better. Every time. Kyle O'Reilly as well. There's just such a great variety of guys there that I love now. This last show we did in New York had Prince Nana and R.D. Evans. I don't know if you saw it or not, but R.D. Evans is like my favourite guy in the world to watch. He's just so entertaining, and I miss that. You know what I mean? Like, God rest his soul. I always used to love seeing Larry Sweeney because he was just so entertaining, and I love seeing Santino Marella. And I know funny doesn't draw money. I get that. You know what I mean? I know you need to have the guys on top of the card to draw the money, but it's like a circus. You have to have a bit of everything, and I think we're starting to get back to that now in Ring of Honor with the real sort of variety of guys there. But it is still wide open. With Kevin as the champion. It's still wide open for one of those young guys to come in and fill the spot. And I think it's great. We've got Matt Hardy coming in now and doing some shots as well. I don't know, whether he's getting, the sort of props, but I watched his match with Adam Cole. And he's really sort of coming into himself from an artistic standpoint. So you've got to remember, he spent a lot of time in WWE, which, to a large extent has a lot of the same sort of formula. But I think him and his brother, back when they were, the Hardy Boys together, were really rocking and rolling. They were really, I don't know what to say, and not reinventing the tag team game, but with Edge and Christian as well. They were doing things that tag team wrestling had never seen before. And now that he's a singles wrestler, I think he's applying that same sort of thing, and it's more subtle. But I watched his match with Adam Cole, and I really saw some things in there that made me think, yeah, he really gets it. You know what I mean? He's not just coming in for a payday. He's not just coming in there to go through the motions. He's really trying to do something here and trying to tell a story. And, it's just, I'm really, really, really happy to be a part of that company right now. It looks very positive for the future.
Now, you mentioned the Ring of Honor fellas. I paid the extra $5 and I got my extras. And it's worth to watch you do magic tricks with the Briscoe brothers. Have you always been into the magic?
Yeah, I mean, I was first into it when I was at high school. And I had a guy who was a sort of amateur magician at the time, and he showed me a few tricks. And I actually paid him £10 to show me how to do these tricks. And they're real simple. I mean, you know, it's kind of ridiculous to pay him the money. But it wasn't until I started going to Japan, that was, 5 years into my career, something like that, that I got back into it because when you're in Japan, they have a lot of sponsors. Wrestling in Japan is looked at very differently than wrestling in America. It's considered more of a sport. I think they're very aware of the predetermined nature of it, but they're also far more respectful of the athletic nature of it. Arguably because, you know, that's a bigger part of it over there. But nonetheless, because of that, you have a lot of sponsors, business people, or whoever it is who are wrestling fans, that will take you out after the shows and buy you dinner and, you know, and basically hang out with them for a free meal. And the trouble is, you don't speak a lot of Japanese and they don't speak a lot of English, so after about 2 or 3 hours, it can get a little long in the tooth, you know. So I started to learn these magic tricks because they kind of cross over. You don't need to speak any language. You can do magic tricks for anyone. And so I started doing these tricks when I was over there, and it became more of a hobby for me, you know. And I started doing it for the boys as well. Raven's a big magic mark as well. And a lot of the guys are kind of really into it. Shelton Benjamin always seems to be very impressed every time I do magic for him, you know. So it's a good habit to have.
Now, I'm not trying to ruin the DVD and the extras, but I need to know.
Here we go.
I need to know how you got the idea of eating your baked potato and your chicken while watching hardcore porn.
What?
Yes.
You're giving it all away.
Not all. That's just there's 2 hours worth of extras, which are phenomenal. But that's just, I don't know. That was just weird. I don't know. That's just like, what did you just like? Was it on one day? Did your roommate have like the black box and you were flipping channels?
Is it racist?
No, the black box is it's an illegal cable box that we have, and if you get one, you get all the pay channels for free.
I had a flashback to when I was watching Red Tube yesterday. Sorry. Shark Boy actually had a copy of the Nude World Order. I don't know if you ever remember. Ron Jeremy did a parody of the NWO and he called it the Nude World Order. And so Shark Boy gave me a copy of his back in the day. So it was in the VCR anyway, I think. And I was sat there, and at the time I couldn't afford to eat chicken, so I was on 8 cans of tuna fish a day. By about the 5th or 6th can, you just, you reach your gag reflex. I would literally, I'd have a couple of bites, I'd wait 10 minutes, I'd have another couple of bites, and you're spending your day eating fucking tuna, you know what I mean? It's no lie. So then I just thought, well, I'm fucking bored. I may as well watch a bit of Nude World Order, right? I put it on, and before I know it, the tuna fish has gone. And then I thought, oh, this is it. This is genius. I've figured this out now. And so from then on, well, for a while at least, until I could afford chicken, I was watching porn.
That's hilarious.
Well, I'm glad those days are past you. I hope those days are past
porn.
you.
I just don't eat tuna fish when I'm doing it.
No.
Give it that realistic effect.
Jesus. Well, Nigel, we want to thank you for your time. If anyone out there is interested in seeing a documentary, not a wrestling documentary, just a documentary about a man overcoming the odds, and it's just such an emotional journey. He puts his heart and his soul into his dream, and just the way it unfolds and how you kind of come full circle is definitely worth it. You can go over to NigelWrestling.com and buy the DVD, Last of the McGuinness. It's $25 for the basic edition. $30 for the extra features. It's definitely worth the $30. I mean, there's at least 2 hours of extra footage in there, and there's good stories. There's, they touch upon just, the toll wrestling is taking on the wrestlers these days, and how many of their friends they've lost, and all sorts of cool stuff with the Ring of Honor guys at the hotel, and it's just a nice. The extras are fun, but the story that gets told is unbelievable, and it's something I feel like everybody needs to see. So if you go to NigelWrestling.com, please check that out. He's got the documentary on his website. You can buy the Last of the McGuinness t-shirt, and then you can follow him on his Facebook and Twitter. I know he's out in Los Angeles pursuing an acting career. How's that going for you?
You're looking at it.
Well,
all right, to be honest with you, I've been so busy with the documentary that I really haven't had a lot of time to commit to auditioning and stuff like that. I have been getting into some stand-up comedy. I'm actually going to be at Flappers in Claremont tonight, which is about an hour outside of LA. More of the stand-up comedy than the acting, to be perfectly honest with you at this point. And to be honest with you as well, yeah, it's not about coming out here to be an actor. It's about coming out here and seeing where fate takes me. I spent the last 10, 12 years of my life trying to get one goal, to be a WWE wrestler, And because I was so intent in getting that goal, I never really enjoyed the journey enough, because I was always focused on what to do next and how to get there. And I think that was a big error to me. And so what I'm doing now is I'm trying to enjoy it every step of the way, and if I never make any money as a comedian or an actor or a magician, it's not that big deal, because when I'm 65 years old and I look back on my life, those things won't really matter to you. The things that will matter to you are just the day-to-day things, the laughs that you share with people, the experiences that you have, that I don't know, that just sort of touch you inside. And a lot of times it's the things you don't imagine, it's the things that when you're a kid and you think about what do I want to do in my life, it never really matches up. You know what I mean? I think that's one of life's stories. That's one of life's journeys, and hopefully one of the things that people can pick up from the documentary. So I'd be interested to hear everybody's feedback. And I think as much as anything, I've been really touched by the feedback so far. It's been overwhelmingly positive. Obviously because that's mostly, wrestling fans have watched it, so they can associate with it and they can understand it, and they're not really turned off by the wrestling aspect of it. But even the people who've seen it who aren't wrestling fans have spoke well of it, I think the real test will be in the long term what effect this has. I'd be really interested to see of the 1,000 people who've seen it so far, how many have actually, gone and been vaccinated or got tested, and how many people, are still willing to watch people, gratuitously bleed, and how many people are now legitimately talking about this and saying, this is something that shouldn't be allowed anymore, that I don't want to see this anymore. That I think will be the real test of how good a documentary this is.
Nigel, before we let you go, I just want to tell you a quick story. There's a couple of fellas that I sit with at work, and they know that I do the podcast here on Thursday nights. And I told them that one of our guests tonight was Nigel McGuinness. Now, these guys have no idea about wrestling. They haven't followed probably since the Hulkamania days. But my friend, one of my buddies, turns to me and says, "Nigel McGuinness, that fucking name rocks." So without even knowing who you were or what you did, they just fucking fell in love with your name, dude. I just wanted to let you know that.
Well, awesome. If only Vince McMahon had.
Nigel, thank you so much for checking in with us tonight, man. Hopefully, we get you a couple more buys on that DVD of yours as well.
Rock and roll, no worries. Just even if you don't, you know what I mean? That's the thing. I just really hope that the messages that are contained within get out there, and that's my biggest concern, really. So just spread the word and enjoy your life. Be happy.
We will continue to do that. And remember, guys, NigelWrestling.com. You can get the T-shirt, the DVD. You can follow him on Twitter, Facebook. Nigel's real accessible. we first got in contact with him on Facebook, and I'm sure if you tweet him something outside of like "Hello, how are you?" he'll get back to you.
Yeah, there actually aren't any T-shirts for sale. Just to nip that one in the bud. I only made a certain number, and they've all gone now. So no more T-shirts for sale. It's just the DVDs, and there'll be posters and 8x10s as well.
Excellent. Well, thank you again, Nigel. We hope you have a wonderful, happy New Year, and we hope to see you again soon over here on the East Coast. I know you'll be around the beginning of the year in Baltimore with Ring of Honor. So, the best of luck to you, sir.
No worries. Thanks, guys. You take care. Be safe. Hope you're feeling better soon.
Thank you, Nigel.
Thanks,
you as well.
You too.
God bless. Bye-bye.
Bye.